Okay, are we on? We on live? Everybody hear me?
Yep, I'm just going to
Okay,
start
we're good. Here we
sharing
go.
it.
I'd like to welcome everybody to another episode of the Never Again Live podcast series with our host, Meir Halevi Weinstein, and with our sidekick, Ron East, who will be the Ed McMahon for our Johnny Carson this evening. And here's I'm Dr. B in the lower left-hand corner in the studio producing this. And tonight's episode, getting more serious for a moment, is not at all a laughing matter. There's many things going on this week, and we'll highlight them. Amongst them are certainly Roger Waters, who used to be with the Pink Floyd group. He's no longer with Pink Floyd, or was that George Floyd? I got to get him confused because he's so supportive of both BDS and Black Lives Matter. But he's planning these rallies all over the world to preach anti-Semitism, to preach BDS. He flies around a pig at his concerts with a Star of David on the side of it. We have some videos of that. And we'll move on from there. And then after that, we'll also discuss the terrible situation where in Kaplan Medical Center in Israel, there are terrorists, Hamas terrorists, who are being treated as if they're some sort of celebrities, with nurses taking photographs, the Arab League not letting Jewish members of the Knesset visit. So without any further ado, we're going to bring Meir onto the screen, and I'll see you all a little bit later.
Well, thank you very much. Let me just ask everyone who's joining us tonight, if you could please share this event, this presentation with your different social media platforms, be it on Facebook with different groups and pages that you're part of, Twitter, Instagram, just any platform there is on social media. We want to reach as many people as possible and discuss the issues. These are very serious issues that we're going to be discussing. We're embarking on a campaign to derail the intentions of Roger Waters to spread his anti-Semitic BDS garbage at a variety of different venues. One in Toronto, he's targeting Scotiabank Arena. So we're going to be in touch with, we are already in touch with the CEO and others who are running the Scotiabank Arena, and he has intentions in Quebec as well, in Quebec City and in Montreal, and a variety of different venues in the United States. Before we get into the issues and what Roger Waters, the anti-Semitism that he espouses, and we have a lot of material to cover tonight, every episode that we have, every show that we have, every live event that we have on the Never Again live show, we start with the Parsha. And it's pretty essential, this Parsha. It's Parsha's Vayera. And in this Parsha, it says, it says a lot in this Parsha, but this is a segment that I take great meaning. And it happened after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he replied, Hineni, here I am. And he said, please take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah. Bring him up there as an offering upon one of the mountains, which I shall tell you. So Abraham awoke early in the morning, and he saddled his donkey, and he took his two young men with him, Elazar and Ishmael, and Isaac his son, and he split wood for the offering and stood up and went to the place of which God had spoken to him. On the third day, Abram raised his eyes and perceived the place from afar. And Abram said to the young men, stay here by yourselves with the donkey, while I and the lad will go yonder. We will worship and we will return to you. Now, just place the Chumash there. Now, according to the sages, according to the Gemara, according to the Talmud, all the sages, so Avram went with Elazar and Ishmael and Isaac. And when they came close to the place, and this is essential, they looked, and Abraham saw the Jewish destiny and the place. What is the place exactly that he was looking at and that they went to? Mount Moriah, more specifically, the Temple Mount, where the Beis Hamikdash, the holy temple, the Jewish temple, stood. We had 2 temples there, where it's difficult today for Jews to pray publicly on the Temple Mount. Abraham saw the place. He saw the holiness and the destiny of the Jewish people. And Isaac saw that as well. And the other 2 who were there, they did not see anything. So Abraham turned to them and said, "Stay there with the donkey." When you understand the destiny of the Jewish people, you have absolutely no fear. We live in a world, it has been a very cruel world to the Jewish people. Not so many years ago, we lost 6 million Jews. 6 million Jews. The world turned a blind eye. At Auschwitz, every single day, 12,000 Jews a day were being exterminated. At Auschwitz alone, 12,000 a day. And the world did nothing. And the American government, under Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he was approached by Jewish leaders, appealing to him, bomb the rail lines leading to Auschwitz. You'll save 12,000 Jews a day. And he said, for technical reasons, I sympathize with you, but for technical reasons, we can't do that. We're not able to do that. The Americans bombed everywhere in Europe in order to smash the Nazi regime, but they couldn't blow up the rail lines leading to Auschwitz. We're dealing with a hate crime, a hate crowd that supports Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran and their schemes and their plans to destroy Israel. We need to take courage from this Parsha and know that that land belongs to the Jewish people. We have no aspirations for anyone else's land, but the land that God promised to the Jewish people. And it's precious to us. And we have to feel that it's an honor to defend our claim to the land of Israel. We're going to be talking about Roger Waters, and we're going to start unmasking the slogan, "Free Palestine from the river to the sea." The BDS movement is trying to camouflage that slogan. And Desmond Cole, who gave a presentation at the Toronto District School Board, says it's nothing but a peaceful movement. Who are the leaders of what you refer to as the Palestine people, the Palestinian people? Who are their leaders? Well, in Gaza, they're run by an organization called Hamas, which is listed by every Western government as a terrorist organization. In Judea and Samaria, what some refer to as the West Bank or disputed territory, that area is run by the PA, the Palestinian Authority. There were to be elections in the Palestinian Authority area, but the elections were canceled. The elections have been canceled year after year after year. And the reason for that is that the majority of the Arabs in the territories support Hamas. There was a conference 2 or 3 weeks ago, a conference put on by the leadership of Hamas. We're going to be showing the information about this conference, and they make it clear what they consider to be from the river to the sea, and they believe that they have it within their ability to destroy the state of Israel, and they make it clear in the documents from the conference, and in their presentations, and in their statements, what their intentions are for the Jewish people. It's important that we speak about this. It's important that we read this, so nothing is hidden, so we understand the full intentions. So we have a meme that we're going to show that will highlight this. I want everybody to pay attention and look at this.
So basically, what Hamas is saying specifically is that they had a conference. The conference was already held by a group which is called the Promise of the Hereafter Association. It was founded in 2014 by Hamas in Gaza, and they have these conferences that they thought were kept secret. There are no videos available, but there's still pictures you could see on the bottom, which you managed to find through Memory, and we thank Memory, MEMRI, for all their help and support. So basically, this conference was for the phase following the liberation of Palestine and Israel's disappearance. Once again, this is they're already assuming there's not going to be any Israel. So they stated, quote, we must differentiate between Jews who should be killed and which experts in the areas of medicine, engineering, technology, and civilian and military industry will not be allowed to leave. Again, they're going to hold certain Jews prisoners. The others they're going to kill or they're going to throw out. I guess they're thinking back to Germany shouldn't have let Einstein out, but too late, so he got out. So back to you. That's my little commentary there. And there's lots of us going on with terrorism at the Kaplan Hospital in Israel that we'll talk about a little bit later.
Ron, you have the screenshots of the statements.
Yes.
If you could read those to the people and we could discuss that.
Sure.
Let
me just get them on here.
Yes.
All right. So let's start with point 15. In dealing with the Jewish settlers on the Palestinian land, there must be a distinction in attitude towards the following: a fighter who must be killed, a Jew who is fleeing and can be left alone or be prosecuted for his crimes in the judicial arena, and a peaceful individual who gives himself up and can be either interrogated or given time to leave. This is an issue that requires deep deliberation and a display of the humanism that has always characterized Islam. That's point 15, the first point.
Right.
Makes me laugh a little bit, the last part, the humanism that always characterized Islam, according to Hamas, as they throw gay people off the top of buildings, as they just finished executing people that they consider to be somehow collaborating with Israel, as they kill anybody who is in opposition to them, as they massacre people left, right, and center, as they try to kill innocent Jews every single day. They still put in the words humanism that has always characterized Islam in the way that Hamas approves it. So it's pretty funny to me.
Desmond Cole ignores it.
Desmond Cole ignores it. The squad ignores it. The woke left ignores it because it doesn't fit within their paradigm of what they want people to believe. So, you can omit facts, you can omit truth that don't fit within your, paradigm, and then you're good to go. Should we go to the next one?
Yes.
Number 16, I find this one very interesting. Educated Jews and experts in the area of medicine, engineering, technology, and civilian and military industry should be retained in Palestine for some time and should not be allowed to leave and take with them the knowledge and experience that they acquired while living in our land and enjoying its bounty, while we pay the price for all this in humiliation, poverty, sickness, deprivation, killing, and arrest. That's interesting. So I guess they're admitting on one hand, that the Jews are at some level an important asset to have. I don't know what you think of this point, but I'm finding it very, very interesting. So if you're somebody who has some military expertise, if you're a doctor, a nurse, things that they're in desperate need of, then you're going to be the token Jew that they're going to keep around until they don't need you anymore. And then they're going to go back to point 15 and they're going to court-martial you and then probably execute you afterwards for your participation in the apartheid and ethnic cleansing. Should we continue?
Yes.
Point 18 says, the minute Israel collapses, the interim government security apparatus must put their hands on the data regarding the agents of the occupation in Palestine, in the region and throughout the world, and discover the names of the recruiters, Jewish and non-Jewish, in the country and abroad. This is invaluable information that must not be lost. For using this information, we can purge Palestine and the Arab and Islamic homeland of the hypocrite scum that spread corruption in the land. This important information will enable us to pursue the fleeing criminals who massacre our people. So I guess they're going to be using that 1.2 billion cloud contract that Israel just signed with Amazon and Google to secure their data in order to later on take that data to use it against Israel. But hold on, no, they can't do that because the BDS just decided that they want Amazon and Google not to participate in the contract. So it's going to be difficult for Hamas to get their hands on the data, I guess. And then the last, yeah, go ahead, Meir. Go ahead, Meir.
No, go ahead. Read the, go ahead.
And they talk here at some point a little bit about the refugees. And they talk about that near the borders, the refugees near the borders of Palestine, in the interim period, will have to remain there and be registered in the Census Bureau and be issued identity cards, and the law of return will be applied to them in a gradual manner. So they're talking here about the fact that, even they recognize that should they be able to be successful in destroying Israel, having that many so-called refugees flooding the country would not be for good stabilization of the country. So they'll have to do it gradually. Oh, and they're saying that the world, we should pay for this refugees return to Palestine. So all in all, free Palestine means no Israel. I mean, there's no two ways to look at it, Meir. I tried to find here where they were leaving a little sliver of land for the Jews, but there is no sliver of land for the Jews. So it's free Palestine is not free Gaza and free Judea and Samaria, or what they call the West Bank. It means get rid of all the Jews out of what is today modern Israel. So I don't know how anybody can say different.
Three things we have there from that document, if I understand it. One,
Yes.
Kill many Jews in Israel, anyone that served in the army in any kind of capacity. And Israel, most Israelis have gone into the army.
So that would be the majority already, yes.
Okay, so we got the majority. Then there's a certain segment, you force them out.
Yes.
If they don't, they have to pay a jizya tax and accept the status of what they call a dhimmi,
Yes.
and pay a certain tax.
Yes.
Never raise their head. Then there's another level of Jew, those who are in certain fields, technology, medicine, different fields that they have expertise. Keep them, never let them leave, like they're under house arrest, and they have to serve this Palestine.
You keep them until such time as you no longer have any need for them, and then you're going to dispose of them through going through a court-martial, because all these people would have served in the army and therefore would be part of the apartheid regime. I would dispute your idea that they would allow any Jews to live there even under a tax regime of some kind, because they make it very clear that even the peaceful ones will be given the opportunity to either be interrogated, and then of course up the ladder into being killed, or being given time to leave. There's nowhere that it's stated that any Jew will be given any opportunity to stay on the land. It doesn't even talk about giving them the opportunity to convert. It just simply says, this is what we're going to do with the Jews. You're either going to be killed at the beginning, you're going to be killed in the middle, or you're going to be killed at the end. But one way or the other, you're going to be killed.
So, in your opinion, does this include Jews who are part of the New Israel Fund?
It includes
associations.
It includes every single Jew, including people from Jewish Voices for Peace, if not now. Anybody who has Jewish blood in them, just like the German Nazi regime didn't distinguish between, this Jew and that Jew. If you were a Jew, you were a Jew. There's no difference in their mentality either. That's, anybody who believes otherwise is a fool. And
what would Rabbi David Mavasser have to say about this?
That he would justify it. He would say that this is correct, and rightly so, because those Jews should be targeted. In his opinion, Jews who live in Israel should be targeted. Absolutely.
He said that.
Yeah. So he supports in many ways, he supports in many ways the idea behind the concept here, in my opinion, that, Jews, that live in Israel and who served in the army and therefore are part of the apartheid, which would be the majority of Jews in Israel, should be targeted and should be either expelled, interrogated, I guess, put in jail, whatever the Palestinian regime sees as necessary in order to deal with what we like to call the Jewish question.
Have you ever seen a statement from any BDS organization condemning Hamas?
They can't do it. You can't do it. Again, it then it changes the paradigm, and it takes away from what they want you to believe. So they omit facts, and they take away things that don't represent their position. And if they're going to come out and say that Hamas is bad, that kind of takes away from a large portion of their argument, because then you should BDS Hamas, really. I mean, if you want to look really at who should be, BDS, who's causing the greatest harm to the region as a whole, who's causing the greatest harm to the Palestinians and the Israelis alike, Jews, Arabs, and Muslims, it's Hamas. It's this kind of, point by point form of what they're going to do with the Jews and how they're going to liberate Israel that suggests to you that any kind of meaningful dialogue to come to any kind of an understanding is so far away that this conflict is going to remain for a long time. And it's unfortunate, because this kind of ideology, it just, continues to foster more and more hate and more of this type of ideology, and it just grows and grows within their community. It will take generations.
We have people, such as I mentioned before, Desmond Cole, that he'll speak in a soft voice, and he'll say, no, it means love, peace, and groovy, and everybody's loving each other. That's what free Palestine means. And from the river to the sea, that's just a beautiful statement. We're all going to get along. Everything's great.
Listen, this is the BDS movement, the anti-Israel movement, the anti-Zionist movement, is a coordinated movement. It's not, they would like you to think that the people are working in individual silos. Nothing is done in individual silos, and everybody has a role to play. Somebody bangs the drums really, really hard, and somebody else comes back and says, no, they didn't hear the drums. Those weren't drums. It was something else. And that's what Desmond Cole's role is, to come in and say, hey, all that noise you see out there, the fire that's burning there, it's not really a fire, right? And that's when he comes in and says, oh, you show me where free Palestine means, right, the destruction of Israel, right? Because he wants to change the paradigm. You need to shift the paradigm, because if you're going to admit that that's what it means, then your entire argument is done.
Well, exactly. And in fact, the BDS was founded in Ramallah, and the founders of the BDS are comprised of the Islamic Jihad and Hamas, the PFLP, other groups as well, terror groups. So they founded it. Hamas is an integral part of it and a financier of the BDS movement, and everything is coordinated in such a fashion. So in order to make their message palatable to gullible people in the West, they have such people as Roger Waters, who will lie through his teeth and say it is peace, love, and everything amazing. But we have the conference, and we read the words of what they said at the conference, the Hamas conference. Well, we have a song from Roger Waters that some of it, we should just listen to it. Listen how he tries to really reach out to people with the song, his Free Palestine song, where he goes on, not at the beginning, but in the song, he says, from the river to the sea, and that's their rallying cry and their rallying chant. And what it means essentially is what Hamas said they want. So we'll have that song in a moment, because it's just not ready to go yet. But
what Roger Waters is doing is doing what a lot of anti-Semites are doing. They found a way to be an anti-Semite without having to feel guilty about being anti-Semitic, because they convinced themselves that hating Israel and therefore hating 90% of the Jews is not really anti-Semitism. It's something completely different. And he's being used, but he doesn't recognize, what he doesn't realize is that he's being used by a movement that would as quickly get rid of him as they would get rid of the Jews, for their own purposes. And for him,
maybe what we should show right now is an interview where he was talking about the disputed area in eastern Jerusalem, where Jews owned property prior to 48 there. Legally, they owned it. And Jordan, after the 48 war, they seized control of Judea and Samaria and East Jerusalem, and they took over these homes. So our doctor in the studio is going to show
Right before that, I'm going to show you a quick 30 seconds of Roger Waters while I'm queuing up the longer one, and then some other little clips. And I'm still looking for the We Shall Overcome. So here's something I think you all might not enjoy, but
because these people AIPAC and ADL and the other extremist Jewish lobby organization, or Israeli lobby, I shouldn't say Jewish lobby organization, or Israeli lobby, I shouldn't say Jewish lobby. Local mayor forbade them appearing on the show because some Jewish organization, some Israeli.
Yeah. You know, Hamas made it very clear. I mean, they cut through the whole thing and they talked about Jews. And now you got these apologists for Hamas, like Roger Waters and a variety, and the whole BDS movement. No, we mean the Zionists.
Yeah, while we're talking about Roger Waters.
In the theater tonight, get him up against the wall.
His famous pig circulating.
Where's one of the spotlight? He don't look right. Get him up against the wall. Yes. That one was Jewish. That one's cool.
And as we see, the pig slowly turns around.
It's the rule.
And there we have, floating around the concert, Roger Waters' inflatable pig with Stars of David on it. And then not only Stars of David on the pig, proudly goes on. Well, that's about all I can handle. I'll bring up the Sheikh Jarrah interview momentarily.
Okay.
You
I mean,
know,
there
that's
you go. You know,
stunning.
with a mock machine gun taking care of who he perceives as the enemies and the Zionists. You know,
It doesn't leave
we
anything
learned-
for the imagination. You know, it leaves nothing for the imagination. And anybody who would tell me any different, you know, is somebody who's either looking through very cloudy glasses or somebody who supports, you know, his position. That is anti-Semitism through and through and through. It's disgusting and it's vile. And my concern, I'm telling you, is not just this, you know, in his next concert, but it's going to be a BDS, you know, fun fest. I can only imagine, you know, the same people who showed up in Toronto in the thousands, you know, in May
15th,
at the end of this meeting.
In it, Water makes the classic anti-Semitic slur of analogizing Israelis to Nazis. In his words, history tells us that the invasion and occupation of a land and the subjugation of its people almost always creates a resistance. Ask the French, or the Dutch, or the Poles, or the Czechs. Before his UN audience on November 29th, Waters continued.
Following a 2005 call from Palestinian civil society, social movements, activists around the world have created the campaign for boycott, divestment and sanctions. And I support it wholeheartedly. The leaders of Hamas have made their position clear over and over again. It is this: Hamas is open to permanent peace with Israel.
Here's what Hamas Prime Minister Ismail Haniyeh has actually made clear over and over again. Take Haniyeh on Al Aqsa TV in January. Instead, in Waters' contribution to the UN website of his complete remarks, he blots out the 1.5 million free Arab citizens of Israel and concludes by championing Israel's illegitimacy and urging UN states to declare Israel's continued membership of the UN to be dependent on reform of its illegal apartheid regime.
You know, Ron, maybe you could chime in again. Just, I want you to read those 3 parts again of what Hamas said no less than 3 weeks ago at their conference. This is
All right, here we go. Point number 15. In dealing with the Jewish settlers on Palestinian land, there must be a distinction in attitude towards the following: a fighter who must be killed, a Jew is fleeing and can be left alone or be prosecuted for his crimes in the judicial arena, and a peaceful individual who gives himself up and can be either interrogated or given time to leave. This is an issue that requires deep deliberation and display of the humanism that has always characterized Islam. Point 16. Educated Jews and experts in the area of medicine, engineering, technology, and civilian and military industry should be retained in Palestine for some time and should not be allowed to leave and take with them the knowledge and experience that they acquired while living in our land and enjoying its bounty. While we pay the price for all of this in humiliation, poverty, sickness, deprivation, killings, and arrests. The minute Israel collapses, the interim government security apparatus must put their hands on the data regarding the agents of the occupation in Palestine in the region and throughout the world and discover the names of the recruiters, Jewish and non-Jewish, in the country and abroad. This is invaluable information that must not be lost. For using this information, we can purge Palestine and the Arab and Islamic homeland of the hypocrite scum that spreads corruption in the land. This important information will enable us to pursue the fleeing criminals who massacred our people.
Yeah, who massacred their
Lovely people, and Waters, Roger Waters has, the goal to sit there and, and be a mouthpiece for Hamas,
Mhm.
He's now become, but that's what I'm telling you, everything is so well coordinated, right? So Hamas in Gaza will scream and yell how they're going to slaughter Jews, and the simple way to do it is to go buy a knife for 5 shekels, you can buy it at any store, and then Roger Waters will sit, and at the UN, and will say they're peaceful people. They've always said they'll accept, peace with Israel and recognize Israel, and the world is listening to him because he speaks English, and the world is ignoring what's happening in Gaza because they're screaming in Arabic. And to the world, it seems that, what do the Jews want? Look, Roger Waters just came. He said they're nice people. So if he says they're nice people, there must be nice people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm wondering if we have that song by Roger Waters teed up. Still looking for it. Okay.
I wanted to mention
Oh,
something.
here's the deal. I found it, but it's 8 minutes long. I have to cut it down to that part. It'll take about 5 minutes. So keep talking
Okay.
5 minutes, and I'll pop it right on.
I wanted to mention.
Definitely worth waiting for.
Yes.
I wanted to mention something that Meir, you mentioned at the beginning when you were talking about the Parsha, and then you were talking about the U.S. during World War II and the bombing of the train tracks. And, it's interesting. We just had an article in one of our, not the last issue, but the previous issue of the J.ca, actually exposing the fact that FDR, wanted to have a very important meeting with Hitler, or wanted his people to have an important with Hitler, because what was important to him was oil. And ensuring that, there would be oil supply and that oil would continue to flow, even despite the war. And, so while, bombing the railroad tracks, to stop the killing of Jews should have been important, usually, what's important is not what's important to you and me. And to him, oil was extremely important. That's the fact why from 1933 till 1938, maybe even 39, you didn't hear from FDR once even uttering anything that was negative towards the Nazis, because he wanted to have an economic relationship with them for the benefit of the United States, even if that meant that 6 million Jews had to pay the price somehow.
100%. I have a book from many years ago called The Rise and Fall of IG Farben, and that was the huge international conglomerate of major companies, but they're based in Germany. And this is how Hitler rose to power, that they struck a deal that they would provide for IG Farben slave labor or work people to death in the concentration camps. And in exchange, IG Farben would help fund and finance Hitler's rise to power. When the Nazis lost, the first people tried and hung at Nuremberg were the officials of the high-ranking officials of IG Farben.
Yeah.
So there's no question about it. And IG Farben was connected to IBM.
I mean, if you go to our website at the J.ca and you go read that article, you'll find out that the oil companies actually tried to sabotage a lot of what the American effort, as it was going on the behest of Hitler. Shortages in rubber, which was important for the war efforts, and were all done by American companies on the behest of Hitler. because the importance of that relationship that they wanted to maintain above and beyond any crime that he was doing. And then you look at today at the world, how it behaves with China, how it behaves now with the Taliban, that they all of a sudden accept them as a normal regime, Iran for that matter. The world is willing to overlook such atrocities, such human violations, in order to profit in some way from the economics, unless it comes to Israel, in which case when it comes to the Jews, it's a different standard.
No, 100%.
And that's anti-Semitism again. It's clear and simple.
And the British, they imposed in 1939 a white paper on Jewish immigration to Israel.
When you were
They're
talking
sinking
about
ships, turning them around. Can you imagine escaping Hitler's Europe and trying to make it to Israel, and the British are not allowing Jewish immigration? How many Jews would have been saved if there was a proper route to go there?
And there was no real rationale for them stopping it, because they already confirmed that Israel, the land there, was going to become a Jewish homeland. It was under pressure and by the Arab countries or by the Arab leadership around them, and the fear of the retribution and the violence, that they thought better to keep the Jews out, and then the Arabs will calm down, than to let the Jews come back to what we promised, what was promised them, and what is their indigenous homeland. And that attempt to stop the Jews from coming in was just futile. You can't stop indigenous people who are wanting to come back home from being able to come back home. They're going to find a way to come back home. And I'm very happy that we have Israel and we have the Jewish homeland. And I wanted to mention something else while we're waiting for Gary. When you're talking about the BDS, this BDS today is not new. It's the same BDS that the Mufti was supportive of, the Mufti of Jerusalem during the Nazi regime, when they declared, that Jewish products should be boycotted in Palestine. So there's a history of the Arabs, and around Israel and around the region, of boycotting and divesting, and sanctioning Jewish products and Jewish establishments for a long time. This is nothing new. They just, resurrected something that's been there before, and it's a big failure. It's a big failure. Every time they try to make it stronger, Israel just gets stronger. Israel's economy is growing and growing and growing. Israel bilateral trades with Canada is just increasing. Look at what they're afraid of now. The big contract that Israel signed with Amazon and Google, $1.2 billion. Microsoft just now it has increased their people in Israel, and they're building more research facilities in Israel for Microsoft. It's amazing. I just read now before we came on the show that an Israeli company has signed a deal with one of the largest grocery chains in England to start implementing cashless checkout, where you come in and you shop with a shopping cart and you just walk out, and then you get the bill to your phone directly. So it's an Israeli company signed a huge multi-million-dollar deal with one of the largest grocery chains in England to implement that kind of software. So I guess the BDS people have to boycott now those kind of stores, because those stores are using Israeli equipment, knowledge, and know-how. Even the
BDS, as I might interject, the BDS is getting very desperate now that they see these incredible successes by Israel and incredible growth in Israel in every field, in every direction. You're giving an example with that. So therefore, the BDS is turning to violence, attacking Jews all over the place, or people who support Israel all over the place. There's no question about it. But we understand it. We understand that their failure, it's a complete failure of the BDS. There's no question about it. But we can't be intimidated. And that's our message for our community. Do not be intimidated, and we have to stand up to them, and we have no choice.
One of our viewers has just mentioned, about the joint space project between Israel and the UAE, which is absolutely correct. I mean, just the bilateral agreements between Israel and the UAE over the last, few months, in the hundreds of millions, of dollars. And if you look at the overall agreements that Israel has signed with all the new countries that Israel has gotten into a peace agreement through the Abraham Accords, you're looking at, well over $1 billion worth of investments, within the countries. They're even talking about free trade now happening between Israel and all the countries that have signed the Abraham Accord. I just heard that there's about 5 other countries lining up to join the Abraham Accords. I mean, you're going to get to the point here where the Arab world is going to embrace Israel, and the Western world is going to be the place that's going to be BDSing Israel. Crazy world we live in.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the history of Israel, attacked from day one, 1948, the 6-Day War, against all odds, Israel wins decisively. Entebbe, they take our people. They think that they're going to be hostages, and Israel is able to rescue them from Entebbe. We have the 73 War, against all odds. Israel wins victoriously, takes seizes the Golan Heights. It's amazing. It's unbelievable. And there was a period of time under George Bush Sr., where Israel wanted from the United States loan guarantees of several $billion. And there was a whole issue. Is the U.S. going to give Israel these loan guarantees of several billion? And now in Israel, there are billionaires in Israel, and the economy is so hot in Israel, and deals all over the world. They even say the deal with the United Arab Emirates over the next decade could be in the trillions of dollars. I can't even count that.
Listen, for a country the size of Israel to be ranked in the top 20 economies of the world, and maybe even it's higher now from last time I looked, says a lot to you about what a small country that's just been, founded, a little bit over, 70 plus years ago. And look where it is today compared to the rest of the world. It tells you a lot about the ingenuity of the Jewish people, the resilience, but it also tells you a lot about the indigenuity of the Jews to the land. We came back home and we're flourishing at home. It's like when you take a plant and you take it away from its regular soil where it's supposed to flourish, it's not going to grow as well. But when you root it back where it's supposed to be, it flourishes, it grows, it blooms, it gives you beautiful fruits. It's the same thing. The Jews for 2,000 years weren't home. We didn't flourish. We didn't really flourish in the world, but now that we're back home, look at the flourishing. Look at the amazement, what Jews can do together. Look at how resilient we are. And a lot of it comes out of necessity.
What you just mentioned, like giving the analogy of a planting in the right environment. And Rabbi Yehuda Halevi centuries ago wrote a Sefer Hakuzari. And this is about a king that is in search of what religion is true. And he decides, after consulting with a rabbi, and he went with all the different world leaders of religion, he decided, after listening to a rabbi and talking to him and questioning and everything, that he'll convert to Judaism, and he'll tell his people as well to convert. And the rabbi, in the book, in the Sefer, goes on about exactly what you said, the Jewish connection with Israel, and that the Jewish people, the only place on earth where they will flourish properly is in Israel. It's that soil, it's that connection of the Jewish people to the land with the Torah, that sprouts.
Every Jew that I know that has made the trip to Israel, every Jew that I know, that's made a trip to Israel always talks about that experience of the first time of coming off the plane and touching the ground, and that immediate connection, the grounding that they're getting at that moment, that feeling of I'm back home. And I don't care if they came from the United States, from Canada, from Europe, from Africa. I don't care if the Ethiopian Jews, if the Yemenite Jews, if the Moroccan Jews, if they're Ashkenazi, Mizrahi, when they land in Israel, that first touch of the land, and you've been there many times, and every time it's the same. The moment that the plane door opens and you set foot, as a Jew, you feel it inside. Your DNA tells you, I am home.
Yes.
And nobody can deny that feeling that Jews have in that connection, and it's because it's in our DNA. It's like almost like E.T., when he pointed up in E.T. and said, E.T., call home. It's the same idea, when we get home, we are that E.T. that finally gets home, and it's amazing, and nobody can deny that.
Absolutely. I think our studio has a video keyed up right now with Roger Waters about.
We do, and
very interesting.
And here he comes.
So
I've been getting all these reports from all my friends, Palestine legal, obviously, but also a lot of my friends in Israel and a lot of my friends all over the world, from South America, from Colombia, from Chile, from Santiago, from other places in South America. And they're all saying the same thing. They're going, Sheikh Jarrah, Jerusalem. What? What? And Biden is still going, oh, I support Israel in anything. Oh, what, you support them in this genocidal removal of people from their homes? How would you like it, Joe Biden? You're sitting at home. There, that's your home. It's where your family have lived for hundreds of years. And some arsehole comes along and goes, oi, that's ours. I'm a settler. I'm going to take your house from you. You can, I don't care what you do. Die. That would be the very best. I mean, it is inconscionable, unbelievable. Makes me so angry. What can you do? What can you do? What can you do? Hey, go and walk. I'll tell you what I can do. I can make this little video and I can post it. And I can tell you that it breaks my fucking heart. And I'm so glad that Human Rights Watch has now followed the lead of B'Tselem, the human rights organization, the Israeli human rights organization, that a number of months ago declared that Israel is an apartheid state. Israel is an apartheid state. Hey guys, you remember that? We're not going to play in Sun City. I thought we had something against apartheid. We certainly did when it was South Africa. Well, why haven't we got something against it now that it's Israel? That's what I want to know. I'm starting a campaign to try and persuade FIFA and UEFA to stop playing soccer against them. That will focus the attention. I know it would. It certainly did to the South Africans. It certainly went, oh my God, they won't play rugby or cricket with us. We must be doing something. Yeah, you were. You were committing the international crime of apartheid, just like the state of Israel is now. All right, I'm stopped. That's enough of a rant for a Thursday afternoon.
I guess the meds were wearing off at that point.
What kind of beer does he like to drink? I mean, it sounds like he's had.
I want to know. I want to know.
Beers.
I want to know what medication he's on. Is he projecting a little bit? Do you think there? You know, die. You know, when he says it, you know, if like there's die. Who said that? Where did he get that message? You know,
maybe our doctor in the studio could fill us in on what kind of diagnosis he has for him, what kind of medical condition he has.
I mean, this is a lunatic. I mean, when you watch this video, it's a video of a lunatic. That's what it is. You watch it and you feel sorry for the man.
Might accuse as being out of my field of expertise. However, it's pretty obvious that he has these delusions. He obviously must have at least auditory, if not visual, hallucinations, because the thing is so out of touch. Eventually tonight, we will play the We Shall Overcome song. But what's interesting about that song that he's commandeered and he's basically hijacked it, it was a song sung by real protest people, and it was Martin Luther King's favorite song. It was sung at his marches, it was sung at his funeral, and it was sung at the dedication of his memorial. And Martin Luther King, we know, was a diehard Zionist. So we could talk about that a little bit after, when we play to this week's Song of the Week will be none other than our guest singer singing We Shall Overcome. And then after that, perhaps we could just mention Martin Luther King and some people who don't suffer such a severe mental illness. I think part of it is he used to be part of Pink Floyd. He's burnt out. He can't really sing. He's not even that great at guitar. So he has to find some way to publicize and market himself. So this is what he's doing.
What I'd like to know is whether or not he made a similar video when he found out that the PA demolished 17 homes of Arab Palestinians in the territory that the PA controls, putting 110 people out of their homes. And then when those people protested, they were similarly arrested, tortured, abused, and then told the only way they'll be let out of jail is if they walk away and never mention this again.
Well, hashtag, it's Israel's fault.
Yeah, so but so when it happens on the Palestinian side, no judicial system, no nothing, no appeals, no anything. Silence. But when Jews want to claim back their homes, oh my Lord, It's an outrage. By the way, is the video going to put of him drunk singing in the guitar? Is that the video we're talking about?
We got
when he's recording.
We have.
Yeah, he does sound a little bit intoxicated, although I hate to accuse him of that. It actually would be a good thing for him to say, "Oh, I don't know, I was drunk on the lies." But anyway,
I didn't realize it.
Yeah, exactly. Of course,
I was under the influence. Oh my Lord, funny stuff. Are we putting the video on?
Oh, it's unbelievable. So Ron, he cites B'Tselem. Okay, so how would Hamas, under what you read, treat B'Tselem?
Well, B'Tselem would fall under the category either of the innocent Jew who they'll interrogate, or be the Jew that's fleeing. Certainly would not be the Jew that they keep for any kind. They might keep him for a while to try and help him with the data mining. But in the end of the day, they're going to find the same fate as everybody else. So just a useful soldier at this point, for the aim and the goal of the BDS and Hamas. I don't think Hamas loves B'Tselem as much as B'Tselem thinks they love him. Just like I have news for the LGBTQ community worldwide. They don't love you either. They might march with them today, but they'll march you straight up the 10 steps of stairs up to the top of the building and throw you all off as soon as they have a chance to. So crazy stuff, man. The world is just nutty. And this is their leader. This is one of the leaders, Roger Waters. There you go, a lunatic.
And he's targeting venues across Canada and in the United States. And we're starting a campaign, and we're going to have to be targeting these venues to apply as much pressure as we can with all of our contacts that we have, and it's vast, to drop him. Now, the Major League Baseball dropped him. And they won't they won't give him a platform to spew his venom. There's no question about that. I believe American Express also dropped him a number of years ago. I think Citibank also dropped him.
So he BDS'd himself. Yes.
So we need to keep the momentum going, and we have to convince also here that the CEO of Scotiabank is Larry Tenenbaum, he's in the Jewish community. He's a philanthropist. He's a good guy, and we can't let him turn a blind eye to this and let it happen at the Scotiabank Arena. He has to stand up and show backbone for the Jewish community and say, no, you're not going to perform here, because this is going to be an anti-Semitic mirror image of a Nuremberg rally. This is going to be a BDS kill Jews rally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. So we have to use everything at our disposal to see to it that it will be canceled.
The moment everyone's been waiting for with bated breath, we now have our favorite singer, songwriter, who's plagiarizing and stealing songs that are 100 years old. He's doing most of the lines, but he sticks in a few of his own. And of course, he can't help putting in a little bit of anti-Semitism with it. So without any further ado.
Our olive trees.
Yes.
From the Jordan River to the sea. Our olive trees.
Let's hear that again.
From the Jordan River to the sea.
I don't think that was sung by Pete Seeger, by the Weavers, by Woody Guthrie, who loved that song, and his wife was a Yiddish poet. And yet here we have one more time Roger Waters making the song his own.
From the Jordan River to the sea, and from Myanmar to Lahore, the thugs will fear to tread.
The thugs. I wonder who are I guess he did mention Hamas after all.
No more kicking in the door. We choose human rights instead. And in Chile and Brazil, El Derecho de Vivir and Paz will echo down the boulevards.
eliminating fear.
You let me know when you guys had enough of this.
And from Chicago to Porthcawl.
He's trying to demonstrate his vast knowledge of geography.
Yeah.
Ron, when he goes on
Draw
about
the
the Jordan
battle
River
lines.
to the Mediterranean,
We will
that's from the river to the sea.
Yeah, but he doesn't mean it in the literal sense. I mean, Meir, just because Hamas said so, he told you when he was with the UN, Hamas is looking for peace with Israel.
Right.
Again, the medication is apparently, inhabiting his ability to.
The land to each and every spot where any man takes what another man's got. Lives in a house that another man built, picks food from the land another man tilled. Drives in a car
By the way, where does he live?
road with a tunnel underneath. Where the
I think in England.
Where does this colonizer live?
Exactly.
Has homes in the United States and other places, this colonizer?
Yes.
I'm assuming some of the technology within all that instruments around him is some form is Israel based, the chips in there, the electric, the computer chips, the whatever. What a fool. He makes a fool of himself. When I see old men do this stuff, I feel sorry for them. Literally, it's like, I've got nothing left in my life. I still need to capture that fame I had when I was younger. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find the one hate that everybody can rally around, and I'll be the champion of that hate. And that's what he is the champion of hate.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, no kidding. But listen, we're gonna meet this head on. We're just starting, and we have to pull the plug.
Can you imagine, Meir?
on his
Can you
guts.
imagine? Can you imagine what the arena in Toronto is going to look like in 2022 when he shows up? Can you imagine the amount of Palestinian flags, the amount of free Palestine,
Yes.
the amount of anti-Jewish and anti-Israel hate that
Yep.
will be displayed that day inside and outside the arena?
Absolutely.
It will just be discussed. I see no difference between this and Netflix attempt at the moment to put up 32 Palestinian stories, to give an equal opportunity for their narrative, where at the end of the day, over 89% of those movies, are sponsored, funded, created by the BDS movement.
Right.
Let me just weigh in real quickly, a couple of minutes. Just while we're talking about We Shall Overcome, I felt a little obligation when this drunkard old man is finished to kind of just remind everybody that We Shall Overcome was Martin Luther King's favorite song. It was sung at his marches, at his funeral, at the dedication of his memorial, and it was hijacked, totally hijacked by Roger Waters. So back to you guys.
No, absolutely, absolutely, and that's exactly what the BDS movement is. That they hijack, they use terms, liberal terms, and they have no intention
Let me
of
just give you
standing
Martin
up for
Luther King's
liberal
opinion
rights.
of the whole thing.
Serious.
That Israel must exist and has a right to exist and is one of the great outposts of democracy in the world.
And Roger Waters has the nerve to hijack the song.
Because they don't care, that nothing is off limits, no lie, no deception, no untruth, no form of anti-Semitism. Nothing is off limits when you try to attack the Jewish people. Everything is fair game. And as Hitler said, if you tell a lie enough times, it becomes the truth. And these guys tell a lie so many times during the day that it becomes their own truth. And it ends up becoming the truth of the fools out there who don't do the basic of research to see what everybody is talking about. And that's the
exactly
problem
what
really
they're
that
doing.
we're facing. That's
Yes.
the problem we're facing. And we're not
Yes.
combating it the right way. Meir and I have had many conversations about this. We're not combating it the right way. We got to look at what they're doing. We got to learn what they're doing, and we got to do exactly what they're doing. We got to fight fire with fire.
Absolutely.
And if they can do propaganda, we should be able to do propaganda. Nothing should be off limits for us either.
Right.
Saving a Jewish life is above everything else. And I think everything in that moment, within the law is fair game. And whatever, we need to learn, and we need to be much better at what we do. It's not enough to stand up there and scream and yell from the top of our lungs. And there's no point in spending tens of thousands of dollars on advertising on bus stops that have no meaning beyond that momentary feeling of goodness. It does nothing for us. There's no point in 17 online, forums talking to the same 17 people over and over and over again. We got to get radical. We got to do the right things. And until we do that, we're not going to be winning this war. We won't win this war until we decide to get organized and get better at what we're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. We got to roll up our sleeves and get busy.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
question about it.
And I'm not talking about doing anything outside of the law. I'm talking about doing whatever is permitted to us to
100%.
do within the law. We should be able to do, and we shouldn't be afraid to do it. If they are not afraid to do it, we shouldn't be afraid to do it, and we shouldn't be ashamed to do it. We shouldn't be
Right.
ashamed to stand for the Jewish people. We shouldn't be ashamed to stand for Israel. We shouldn't be ashamed to be Zionists. There should be no shame in it. And I think, our community has allowed us to feel that there's some kind of shame in it by the way our own community has been behaving. And we need to take our community back, and we need to be proud back of who we are. And you and I have had this conversation too, Meir, many times.
Yep.
Our
Well,
community
listen,
leadership is-
the main leadership in our community totally ignored the hate and the anti-Semitism and the violence that took place
Yeah.
in May at these BDS pro-Palestine protests that took place. They've ignored it. They've been asleep at the switch.
I challenge any of them to come on the show, any one of them. I challenge them. I welcome them. Come on the show, explain what you're doing to combat anti-Semitism, explain what your plan is, explain how you're going to take back our community, explain how you're going to reinstill pride in our community of being pro-Israel and being Zionists and loving the state of Israel and loving being Jewish. You explain to me what your plan is. I got 3 kids under the age of 15. What is my community leadership's plan for my children? It's nothing, zero.
Right.
And that's what upsets me. That's why I do what I do, because there's nobody out there else who will do it. Our community
Right.
leadership refuses to do it. They just want to schnorr the money and then allocate the money amongst themselves. And here we go, and dealing with the real tough subjects, nobody wants to do it.
Well,
It's tough.
100%.
Nobody wants to do it.
100%. Listen, we've had some recent successes of stopping. There's going to be a Bikers for Palestine ride
Yeah.
on a Shabbat in Toronto, and we stopped that. There was going to be plans for the Human Rights Museum in Winnipeg to put a Nakba exhibit. We raised the alarm bells about that.
Yeah.
We started a campaign about that, and that's not an issue anymore. No one's even talking about it. So we took care of that. There's other examples. We have to take the bull by the horns when it comes to Roger Waters and Desmond Cole and the BDS, and that's it. And we have to realize, we do realize that organizations like CEJA and there's others that they have incredible resources and funds. They're not there. They're asleep at the switch, and therefore we're stepping up to the plate and we're providing that leadership, and that's it.
Yeah, and Im'ena Nili Mili is something that every Jew needs to internalize.
There you go.
Im'ena Nili Mili. If I'm not there for myself, who will be there for me? And if with
Mhm.
Jews at this point we haven't learned yet that there'll be nobody out there for us, then we're still creating the same mistakes that our forefathers created, and the same mistakes that led us, to the god awful Holocaust. We
Yep.
need to internalize it, that we as Jews need to unite and stand together and stand firm. And not only that, but as Jews also, we need to identify those Jews within our community that are threatening us.
Yep.
And those Jews need to be exposed and be held, to account, because those people are doing great harm to our community, like the Rabbi Mevasar that you mentioned,
Mhm.
like the independent Jewish voices of the world, the If Not Nows, sometimes even, other people who are coming into the mix, who are doing great harm to our community and still are allowed to be equal members and full members of our community, while they stab us in the back. It's outrageous. In no other community would this be tolerated.
No question about it. Jewish community centers to open the doors wide to these traitors from our community. No, it. There's
Just
a
something that just somebody mentioned here, said too many Jews sadly embrace anti-Jewish leftism and they don't help other Jews. I mentioned to Meir just yesterday, I think, and I won't mention too much of which organization it is or whatever, but I was speaking with somebody who does raises money for a very important organization in Israel that actually saves lives.
Right.
And the person expressed to me the difficulty they've been having the last few years in trying to raise the funds that maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago would have been just a normal,
Right.
philanthropic event for any pro-Israel Zionistic Jew. And she says now when she approaches the same philanthropists, or their children, since they have passed away, their children are much more inclined to give the money to woke, left type, organizations, even pro-Palestinian organizations,
Right.
than provide that money to an organization that actually saves lives in Israel, not only of Jews, but of Jews, of Christians, and of Muslims. So our community is failing us big time. Our leadership is failing us big time. When a philanthropist, a Jewish philanthropist, would rather spending money outside the community than supporting the community, you know that something is wrong with our community. You know that there's something rotten, and we need to expose with that rotten stuff. It's terrible.
Absolutely. Listen, before we sign off,
Look at the time.
I just want to mention that on Sunday, early on Sunday, we're going to be sending out the information. We're going to be posting it all over the place. It's going to be a memorial for Rabbi Meir Kahana, who was the founder of the Jewish Defense League. He certainly was responsible for getting me involved in Jewish activism. And I have a lot of people that are going to be, some from Israel on. We're going to have a live feed with the memorial that's taking place in Jerusalem on Sunday. And I have guests from the United States who were very involved with Rabbi Kahana a number of years ago. The event is going to take place 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time, because the event in Jerusalem in Israel is going to be 6 o'clock p.m. Israel time. And there's a 7-hour difference from Israel to, well, Toronto time. There's Winnipeg time, that's different. There's, yeah, for us. So therefore, we'll be starting at 11 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, and we'll be sending out the information. Might have some, I don't know if we have a meme right now that we could show of that event, but if not
yet, but we'll have it done for tomorrow morning. Go out everywhere. The other thing, just if you feel it's appropriate, you know, since news is news and it becomes old news really quickly, and as a physician, I thought maybe we should just quickly comment on the incidents at the KAPLAN hospital in Israel, where first some nurses posed at the bedside of Hamas terrorist, and then our representative of the Knesset wants to go there, and he's blocked by the Arab League. So if you all want to talk about that, and I do have those quick little videos, so if you want me to show those, but just bring it up. I think our audience needs to know that we're on that as well, and that particularly if we're going to talk about Kahani and what he did and what he said, he was right. Even in an Israeli hospital dedicated to a man named Kaplan, who is a Zionist, we have Palestinian Muslims celebrating Hamas in an Israel hospital. So you all can talk about it, and when you're ready, I'll put on a couple of short videos.
You know, before you put the video on, Doctor, I want to say to you something, because you're a doctor. I find it amazing, and it seems to me that only Palestinians are capable of doing this, of holding hunger strikes that are 90+ days, you know, without having succumbed to the hunger strike. Now, I watch Alone. I watch Alone on TV, you know, when people are thrown in the middle of nowhere, and they have to try to survive 100 days, and they have some food and water. And some of these people break after 30 days, you know, and they have to be taken off for medical reasons. Yet these people, somehow miraculously, for 90+ days, survive in a complete hunger strike. It boggles my mind, first of all. And second of all, let me tell you, you want to tell me that if a murderer here in Canada, a pedophile murderer here in Canada, decide to go on a hunger strike, that the Canadian, you know, people should be pushing the government to release them from prison? Die is what I say. Die.
Think about it. Think about
and
it.
I say the same thing here. If your hands have blood on them and Jewish blood on them, you know, and you want to commit, you know, hunger strike because you don't like the way that you are being treated in prison like a prince, then die.
Well, and again, who are they fooling? If their followers really think they're on a hunger strike and they can live, not only can they not live for a week or so, to live 90 days without any food, I mean, that's fiction. That doesn't happen. We know, because there were these forced hunger strikes on Jews called the Holocaust, where they weren't fed to see what would happen, and they died.
No food, but 50 cans of Ensure Daily. That's probably what it was. Somebody wrote on that.
Exactly.
But again, you know, and then the world buys it. You know, the world just, just buys this notion that this guy's been on a hunger strike for 90 days, and look at this, and he's frail. Do you remember
one of the PLO leaders who's in jail, Marwan Barghouti?
Yeah.
That he went on a so-called hunger strike. And there were cameras that filmed, and they showed that he had a chocolate bar hidden over there.
Yeah.
He had something else hidden
There
over
we
there.
Could it's all propaganda, and then what ends up happening, two people who work at the hospital who are somehow supporters of Hamas, but hey, they wanted the benefits of working in Israel, the benefits of earning good wages, the benefits of living in a democracy, a free place where they can do, but the same token, they'll go and they'll hug this Jew killer, and then you wonder. And then you wonder how these two people treat the remaining patients at the hospital, in particular the Jewish patients.
Yep.
Right.
And it's concerning.
Yep.
And I'm glad that the hospital right away took action on it. What's more concerning is that an Israeli politician, a Jew, is prevented from accessing any part of a hospital, not by hospital security, not by Israeli police, not by hospital administration, but by another politician who deems him to be an unfit person to come there and make a visit. Sometimes you wonder about, even in Israel, about how strong the laws are and how sometimes fear allows, even in Israel, things to get out of control. Same as what happened before we show the video, Gary. Same as what happened in Jerusalem just 2 days ago. And again, Meir, you and I talked about it. The Palestinian scouts had a march, thousands of them marched through all Jerusalem in celebration of the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, culminating in all of them gathering at Shar Shechem, which then resulted in them rioting, throwing bottles and rocks at buses, breaking their windows, injuring people on the buses, causing riots that required, police intervention. 30 people were arrested. This nobody condemned.
And UNICEF Palestine condemned Israel for arresting Arabs.
But Jews want to march on Yom Yerushalayim, or for that matter, also on Israel Independence Day with Israeli flags through Israel's capital.
Right.
And the world is outraged. It's going to be inflammatory.
Oh,
it's
how dare those Jews.
It's going to cause Hamas to fire rockets.
They're going to get mad.
So Jews can't walk with flags in Jerusalem, Israeli flags in Jerusalem, because that's inflammatory in their own country, in their own capital. But Palestinian Arabs, I know some people tell me there's no Palestinians, but we got to define them. So Palestinian Arabs are allowed to and encouraged and are safeguarded by Israeli security to march through the same streets, in celebration. And that's okay. It's absurd. The world is upside down.
And go up on the Temple Mount, go up on Hamas supporters on the Temple Mount, waving proudly with no one doing anything, Hamas flags.
Listen, if you've seen how they desecrate the Temple Mount, if you see the things they do on the Temple Mount that they call the third holiest site, if you see the kind of things they do there, anybody who respects a holy site would not do any of that sort, which then shows you again that their connection to it is not that great, because, nobody would do that to a place that they consider to be holy. Anyways, we should
have a show, another episode where we show how Mecca and Medina are treated, how Muslims revere it, and how they handle it. That there's no soccer games going on there or anything.
You don't get to defecate at a tree. You don't get to pee outside of the tree there. I mean, that doesn't happen.
Show what goes on the Temple Mount with the Al-Aqsa Mosque, what they're doing.
A Muslim can defecate at a tree on the Temple Mount and nothing happens. A Jew walks on the Temple Mount and says a Shema and he gets arrested and thrown out. I mean, the world is just ridiculous.
Right.
Ridiculous.
Right.
Okay.
So we have a video here.
We have a couple of videos, and again, in my usual style, I can't just show a video, so I mean, anybody could do that. So perhaps, due to the interest of time, instead of a closing song, I'll talk a little bit about the whole, again, as a doctor, from a perspective, just let me start this, is I take care of a lot of patients with injuries, burn patients. I once took care of a patient who opened his radiator, burned the side of his body. So as I cut off his shirt to take care of his third-degree burns, he had a swastika on his arm. I took care of him, but trust me, nobody in the hospital got to his bedside to take pictures with him, and everybody was as appalled as I was by it. So without any further ado, we're going to talk a little bit about the hospital where these incidents took place, and then we'll do a little closing comment. So as I was said, it's hard for me just to do a video. So Israel Now Productions presents to our audience a little bit about the Kaplan Hospital. So here we have Kaplan Hospital. Kaplan Medical Center is an impressive facility, as we can see. it's 60 acres of every specialty imaginable. It's a full-service hospital with every department, as well as being affiliated with the Jerusalem School of Medicine, with Hadassah, with Hebrew University, and it's quite an impressive place. And the fact that they make believe that Palestinians don't get treated there is absurd. What's important is it was named for Eliezer Kaplan. There he is in this little picture, and he actually, in his youth, helped establish the Youth of Zion movement. You'll notice that he was 14 years old at that time, and he was one of the original signers of Israel's Declaration of Independence. So here we have it. Two Arab Israeli nurses at the Kaplan Hospital decided they're going to pose for a selfie with their hero, a Hamas terrorist, in a hospital. It's one thing, they're obligated to take care of him. They should be forbidden to kind of socialize with him. They should be fired. I know they're saying they're taking action, but the B'Tselem Human Rights Organization said specifically, first they described what happened, that they were photographed standing next to a terrorist, smiling and expressing their support. It's a terrorist who is in prison for the desire to murder and to shorten lives. He's in a hospital to save his life, but he shortens lives. There's no doubt these employees are obligated to treat him, but they are certainly should be forbidden from celebrating with him, and they're not worthy of wearing the uniforms of hospital employees. And as if that wasn't enough for the last couple of weeks in review, as Ron had mentioned, at the medical center, Ben-Gvir wanted to pay a visit to him. You know, certainly he's entitled to. He's in the Knesset. He's in the hospital. He's an Israeli. Oh, and there's a little terrorist with his mom at the bedside, undoubtedly sneaking him food, because you can't live 90 days without food, as I'm sure his mother wouldn't let him. So he noted with surprise, after months without food, he's miraculously still alive. So is he either manna from heaven or food from mama? It's one or the other. We haven't decided which it is yet.
And Gary, I got a question for you.
Ask away.
You know, he's getting paid, his family's getting paid, and he's getting paid by the PA,
right,
for his participation in the pay to slay program.
Exactly.
He's now been using Israeli funds, public funds, to using and taking over a hospital bed in an Israeli hospital. Are we charging? Is Israel charging money for that through his pay to slay program? I'm just interested to know how he's paying for this, or is the apartheid ethnic cleansing state so nice that it's paying for his stay?
It's so nice.
Excellent point.
So when he arrived at the hospital, you know, that's what he said. You know, how can it be that after 90 days with no food that he's not dead? Well, so he wanted to go find out for himself, why is this guy not dead? So what did Odess say to him? He prevented him from seeing him, and he called our guy a little terrorist. Of course, he answers to him, you came here to defend him and attack me, of course. You know, that's the reality.
You know, in the meantime, in the Arab Israeli population, I think today they reached 102 or 104 murders within their own community.
What is this? I mean, how could he possibly block me from getting it? Who is this guy? What is he, a little high school student? He goes and gives him a shove, then he backs away so he can't retaliate, and then the bodyguards prevent him from getting
all this, the absurdity, all this happening in an Israeli hospital.
This is in a hospital. I mean, it's my
yeah.
So like the typical thug that he is, in the midst of a witness argument, he has no problem pushing him, then getting out of the way. Getting out of the way was certainly a smart move on his
And
part.
you see who is looking to support him and protect him as he's pushing an Israeli, is Jewish member of Knesset. Who is
Right.
he looking to protect him?
The
The
Jews.
Israeli security, Jews, and Israeli administration of
Now,
a,
this guy,
a Jewish
he's
hospital.
wait a second. It gets worse. He's in the Knesset. He's in the Israeli government.
Yes.
And when he speaks in Hebrew, he's nice and sweet. When he speaks in Arabic, this is what he said in June of this year: the flag of Palestine will be raised, and Jerusalem will be the capital of occupied Palestine. That's a member of the Knesset. I'm dumbfounded by the ignorance.
He's a featured speaker also by J Street.
Yeah, he also said a Palestinian nation will cause them to feel ashamed and withdraw from these areas. Really? So that was in June. In May, while the Arabs were rioting and, collecting weapons inside their mosque, this is what Odeh called for, an intifada, where until there is a decisive intifada that ends the occupation, raises the flag of Palestine over the mosque, over the churches in Jerusalem, and over the gates of liberated Jerusalem. This is our Knesset speaking. And there they are collecting their bombs and, tossing stuff. And that's how much they praise their mosque as a holy site.
That's how much they love it. I mean, this is exactly
So
what it
again,
is.
don't take my word for it. Here's a description of Odeh from this woman we'll talk about in a minute. But she says, like a person who becomes a werewolf at midnight, a werewolf. The affable Odeh in Hebrew turns into a dangerous insider in Arabic. So Sarah served as an officer in the Israeli Defense Forces, got a bachelor's degree and master's degree at Hebrew University. She's now a journalist, contributing columnist, mother of three, and the chairwoman of the My Israel movement. And that's her description of a member of the Israeli Knesset. Again, that's not me speaking. So,
But Gary, that's a perfect description for everybody who participates in the anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, pro-BDS movement. They act one way in public and a different way behind closed doors. They have one message to the larger community and have a whole different message to their own supporters and followers. He's no different from all the rest of them, but this shows you the absurdity of the world that we live in, that, you have to sometimes make friends with people that, you would not even associate with. And then these people abuse the freedom they get through the democracy in which they live in. He would never attempt to do that in Gaza to Hamas.
Right.
He would never attempt to do that in the PA to the Palestinian Authority. He would never do that in Lebanon or Syria or Iraq or Iran. But he feels it's okay for him to physically, touch and be violent with an Israeli Jewish member of the Knesset because he lives in a democratic country where he knows that nobody will do anything to him, because if they did, the Arab community will come out in a rage, and in Jerusalem will be burning, and rockets will be fired from Gaza. And because they know this thing, they allow themselves to do certain things that normally they wouldn't allow themselves to do. That is the problem. And it's a problem that comes from years of Israel not dealing with this problem in the right manner.
Well, thank God we have some people like Itamar Ben-Gvir that are stepping up to the plate and making an issue out of this, and he's getting a lot of support.
Well, it's interesting her analogy, because I was thinking of Jekyll and Hyde, but Dr. Jekyll, he's pretty smart during the day. This guy's not even smart during the day, so he acts like a human being during the day, and then he goes and he becomes basically a werewolf at night. So we're going to wrap it up now just with my last couple of comments on this.
Listen, we could go on for hours and hours. There's enough material out there to fill out, a full year of us running this 24/7.
Definitely.
The battle is long. The battle is going to be difficult, but if we stay the course, if we stay resilient, if we continue to put out the message that needs to be put out, and if we become a little bit more hungry in our approach and a little bit more strategic in the way that we fight this hate, I think that we can get more and more success. And we need to continue what we're doing here. Expose. This is something that nobody else is doing on a regular basis, not in Canada in any case. It's something that we need to continue to do to expose this not only in Canada.
Jews. I mean, here he is with Bernie Sanders. So, of course, that gives him the credibility he desires. But I just, in closing comment, when the full moon comes out, as has been said, you got to watch, because there's a little bit of a transition there. And there we have it. Ron, that was for you.
By the way, one more point.
I love it.
When the Ben and Jerry's issue started, Eamon Odell was posting on his social media that he's eating Ben and Jerry's. He really loves them.
Exactly. Okay, I'm going to sign this
Yeah.
thing off. And
You know what? I just one more comment to Sam Fishman, who's watching us. He says you're still talking to the choir, and Sam, I fully agree with you that we're still talking to the choir. But the hope is that we can disseminate this information outside of the choir. Hopefully, people like yourself and others who are watching the show will share it with their friends, will be educated, learn something, and take away to their conversations around the water cooler, or nowadays, whether it's in Zoom or whatever format. Part of the idea of this program, I think, and Meir, correct me if I'm wrong, is to instill knowledge and instill power and empower the people watching the show to take action in their own lives and to stand up for Israel in their own lives wherever the opportunity arises, and to educate people wherever they can, you know, about what is right and what is wrong, and to join this ongoing battle. It's a long battle, you know, to ensure the safety of our community, not so much just in Israel, but even more important here in the diaspora.
I believe in strengthening our support base, and they need knowledge and they need courage to go out there. And once they show that courage, that will ignite a flame in our community with other people and other supporters of Israel, and we'll get the job done. There's absolutely no question about it. We're not going to repeat the mistakes of past generations, the generation of the Holocaust that didn't do anything, didn't help. We're there and we're on the front lines, and
Absolutely,
we have to. And that's it. That's the slogan, never again. I believe we have a song to conclude. We covered a lot, and there still is a lot more information to get out there. And we're going to be continuously talking about Roger Waters and our campaign to thwart his plans. No question about it.
I was going to play Roger Waters' song, but I can't. I just can't find my heart. So I'm going to play a happy song, because we need to always end on positive notes about Israel. But I guess you all know that Aliyah to Israel is up 30%, and tourism is opening up since they have most of the country's been vaccinated. So everybody, you know, stop talking about it. Get up, make your plans, make reservations, go to Israel. And this is what you might find as you arrive.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Closing comment?
I don't think you need much after that, except Am Yisrael Chai. That's all I got to say.
Meir?
Well, that feeling of electricity when you get off the plane in Israel is it's incredible. You feel that you're home, and that's 100%. I'm Israel High. We're going to continue. We're not backing down. We're determined.
No way.
We'll succeed. And that's it. And we understand what this fight is all about. We're ready.
Am Yisrael Chai.
Shalom